I'm Mark Turner, the Gilroy Chamber of Commerce, back with segment 3 here of our do-it-yourself landscape and design. Again, we're with Ryan Dinsmore from Alpine Landscapes, Greg Bozzo from GB Landscaping Services, and Karen Aitken from Aitken Associates Landscape Architects. Thank you all for being with us. A few more questions we just wanted to ask you, and Karen, will go to you on this one. If someone has a heavily shaded yard, what might be the types of plants and shrubs or flowers that they should be considering?
I'll suggest a couple of different sorts. You might be thinking of planting in some layers. So if you have a foreground planting, coral bells, the heuchera is a great choice for the shade. Those plants come in dozens of choices now. Both the coral bells, ajuga, lamium are wonderful ground cover plants. For the mid-range, let's say you've got 3 layers and you want a middle range. It might be some azaleas and gardenias could go in there. That would be in the 2-3 foot high range. And then for the background planting, might be up against a house wall. The camellias, certainly, the rhododendrons, Chinese lantern, and you might even have room for a Japanese maple on a corner of your yard in the shade. Especially ferns, and if you're in a land with deer, the ferns are a great plant for the shade that they don't happen to like eating.
Good advice there. If somebody wants to, Karen, if they want to create shade, what's advice you would give them? What types of trees? And obviously, Greg told us that you put trees in, you're going to have to deal with leaves at some point. But if someone's trying to create shade, what might be the best tree to work?
A couple of my favorite trees for the Gilroy area, especially, would be the Japanese maple. I found many varieties. Some can get to over 20 feet tall. The crepe myrtle is a beautiful one. We'll get the summer bloom and the fall leaf color. Fantastic shade tree, large shade tree, is the Chinese pistache tree. You'll see that all around town, which during the summer is just green leaves, wonderful to sit beneath. And during the fall, right around Halloween time, it will have the gorgeous orange-red flame leaf color. Those might be my 3 top trees for this area.
All right. Well, Karen, again, I want to stay with you on this. Now, let's say that somebody has a yard that is in full sun. What would you recommend as far as plant shrubs or flowers for their yard?
There's so much to choose from. It comes a big question away, but let's say the hummingbird garden we discussed in a minute, that needs to be in full sun. So anything in the sage department and the penstemons. Roses, certainly, a lot to choose from there, and some of the rose varieties now are not such difficult care. And many different sorts of shrubs, the Indian hawthorn, pink breath of heaven, those are a couple of really popular plants. And the ground covers for slopes, you might be looking at something like a Myoporum, it's a nice choice. And you might even want to research some of the California native plants. Like the ceanothus is also a good choice.
Outstanding, thank you. Now, Greg, what have you seen in the out in the field as far as whether a shaded yard or a yard in full sun? What are you seeing?
Well, for the shaded, in addition to the plants that Karen mentioned, there's a green hedge that we use a lot called Sarcococa, and it's also named Sweetbox. So that'd be like a medium size. She talked about layering. That'd be a medium sized. That's probably one of the best shade dwelling evergreen shrubs that I know of. The other plant that'll give you a little bit different color and also will give you different heights from 2 feet to 8 feet, and that is the Nandina heavenly bamboo. It's one of the more durable plants that can grow in sun or shade that I use a lot, and it's also deer resistant.
Now, you mentioned bamboo. Is that the type that just takes over your entire yard and you can never get rid of it?
No, the heavenly bamboo is just a common name. It's not a typical bamboo plant. It will not spread quickly like that.
Okay. And Ryan, again, we get now to say a yard that's in full sun. What are you seeing and what are you recommending?
Well, Karen had a lot of great recommendations. Some other ones are lantanas. Those, a majority are lower growing to 1 foot to 2 feet, but there are some that can get 6 feet and come in bright colors such as red, orange, yellow, also purple. Also ornamental grasses. You want to plant in full sun, a majority of them. Those ornamental grasses often get cut down to the ground after your last frost. And if they're not in sun, they won't regrow as a perennial. Another sun plant would be Photinia. That has the red leaf, the red foliage in the summertime. It's a hedge. If it is used in shade, it could be susceptible to a powdery mildew. And there's one new plant that's come out in the past couple of years that we're seeing a lot on commercial projects and probably residential as well, that could be used in sun and shade, is a Lamandra grass. And it comes in different varieties, and it gets 2 to 3 feet tall and wide, and it doesn't freeze and can be both used in sun and shade situations.
All right, very good. Brian, let's stay with you. Can you share a few tips on what people can do seasonally to keep their yards looking their very best?
Springtime cleanup. You know, after that last frost, it's definitely important to go ahead and cut your perennials back. You don't want to do it too early or too late. Usually we try to do it the end of February. Sometimes you will get a frost early in March, but it's not going to last. Usually the frost we're concerned about is when it gets to 32 degrees for 3-4 consecutive days. In March, you'll see possibly 1 or 2 days. As well, in the fall, you do want to do crepe myrtle pruning. You see a lot of residences that don't necessarily prune crepe myrtles. The reason for pruning crepe myrtles is obviously one, to keep them of size, but it also reduces the amount of scale or insects they can produce the following spring. As well, they produce better flowering in the summer.
Thank you, Ryan. Greg, how about you? What are some tips on some things people can do seasonally?
Yeah, for me, I would advise like a mindset. Sometimes because in the trades or building a home or construction, you know, for like example, you have a roof, you're under the impression that it's going to last for 30 or 40 years, hopefully. And if you paint your house, you're under the impression that's going to last for 15 years. But the garden is the one that's totally different. The maintenance starts tomorrow. Because we deal with so many different variables in that part of our work. For example, weather, if it's too hot, too cold, water too much or too little, disease, pests, soccer balls, foot traffic, dogs, deer. You have to be in a mindset that you should almost always be replacing something at the beginning or the end of the year. If you think you're going to put it and forget it, sooner or later, your yard will not look that well.
All right, very good. Good advice. Well, again, thank you all three for being with us today. I appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule. Any last thoughts before we sign off? Karen?
Have fun. That would be my best. So, you know, a little at a time. Don't get overwhelmed with your garden, and just enjoy it this summer.
Thank you, Karen. Ryan, how about you?
Landscapes bring value to homes. An aesthetically pleasing landscape, both front and backyard, can keep home values towards the top of the market in, you know, any given neighborhood.
Thank you, Ryan. Greg, how about you? Any final thoughts?
Yeah, jumping back to the butterfly garden conversation, one thing some people don't realize is that there are plenty of pollinators, right? So that means the flower that the hummingbird or the butterfly comes and gets nectar from, and they move from flower to flower. Some are more popular than others, of course. But one thing people sometimes forget is that before it's a butterfly, it's a caterpillar or some type of larvae. And if you're looking to help the butterfly ecosystem, those are the plants you need to study, is how to sustain the caterpillar stage. Because if we don't have the correct plant material for the caterpillar stage, then you don't get the butterfly. And the perfect example right now, of course, is the monarch. it's at the lowest populations that it's ever been. And the problem with the monarch is the larvae can only feed on one type of plant, and that is the milkweed. So if there is no milkweed, then there will be no caterpillars. So if you're looking to sustain the butterfly community, look into milkweed.
All right. Thank you all. I appreciate that, Greg, Ryan, Karen. Thank you so much for being with us and sharing your do-it-yourself landscape tips. Now that does it for today. I'm Mark Turner with the Gilroy Chamber of Commerce.